This is the Skycamp 3.0 from iKamper, and it's one of the largest and lightest 4-person rooftop tents on the market. Inside you have a 2.5-inch thick mattress that's a little bit larger than a king-size bed. You've got this killer skylight here and 2 windows that actually use drawstrings to quickly release and shut down on the sides. And in this video, I'll dive into why I upgraded my Jeep Gladiator with it and my real-world experience with it on the trail. Over the past 7 years, I've been using an ARB Simpson Series III rooftop tent. I've put it on multiple rigs, wheeled with it plenty, and have never had a single failure from the zipper or even a rip in the fabric. So why upgrade? My family of 4 simply needed more room. We got to the point where we were taking a tent cot in addition to the rooftop tent, so I finally made the call that it was time to upgrade. Given that I knew how my Jeep reacted with the 154-pound ARB tent, I wanted to try to stay as close to that figure as possible, which is difficult in the hard-shell 4-person tent arena. The closest I found was the iKamper Skycamp 3.0, which weighs just 11 pounds more at 165. So why not just get an inexpensive ground tent? It's obviously going to be lighter to carry and it's going to be way less expensive. I definitely would say it's not going to be faster to put up though. And part of that is, yes, I wanted something that was going to be easy to basically deploy anytime we wanted to go, but realistically, my family loves being in a rooftop tent. We've got 2 young kids. My wife really likes being up high. I think there's something about that sort of safety and security that gets them more excited and want to go camping. Now, a big selling point of a hardshell rooftop tent is that it opens and closes pretty easily. Obviously, it's pretty high, and I've got a Gladiator with 4.5 inches lift and a 40-inch tall Nitto trail grappler. This isn't meant to be some sort of like overland build. I just wanted a built Gladiator that I can do anything with, and one of the things that I do is camp out of it. So logistically, this is a challenge to access because it is so tall, but it's really not that hard, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how I do it. I'm not trying to be the fastest guy that does it. I'm trying to be the guy that doesn't fall when I do it. But the big thing you always have to have, and don't forget, is these latches have a keyed lock, and I will tell you that's probably my least favorite thing about this tent. Not necessarily because I don't like that it has added security. I understand why. I just wish there was a way that I could already have this thing unlocked, and then maybe there was like a quick button or a knob that I could just twist and it opened right up. Because the way you have to do it, and yes, I'm going to climb on my wheel. These wheels have like rock rash all over them. It is what it is. It's not too bad to actually step up and do it. So the latches themselves, to unlock, you have to put the key in, unlatch this part, and then you got to lock that back. So you don't want those to be flopping around. Not my favorite feature. I get it from a security standpoint, but not really the best. Now, once you give it a little nudge, the struts will mostly take it the rest of the way. At this point, you got to get the ladder out. This is always a bit awkward, but the way I do it is I like to go ahead and extend the ladder out as much as I can. And now from here, I will spider monkey down the Jeep, and you bring it up as much as you can, and then from there, now we're set up. Now, a couple notes about how this ladder position is supposed to be. The rungs are actually angled, and ideally you want the rungs to be as flat as possible. You might have to go through and adjust depending on the terrain you're on to get this thing perfectly set up. It's not supposed to be like way far out. Don't do that. You kind of want to get it to where these things look like they're flat. They got a little support, and now you can climb up. And the nice thing is, this thing doesn't need a lot of tent poles. They actually have a built-in zipper bag, so you can get to all of your poles that are right here. Mine always have lots of sand in them from going to the beach. So to get to actually posting this up, you've got 2 holes on the front. Goes in at a little bit of an angle. You're gonna bring up your rain fly, which you can actually remove this rain fly. So if you're summer camping and you want a little bit more breathability from the fabric, you can do it. So there's part 1. Take the second one, do the same thing, and that's basically set up. All right, so let's step inside. Now, one thing that I typically do when I put it up is I keep the screen and the main cover rolled up and out of the way, so I don't have to worry about it when I'm setting up. Again, this is where your pole eyelets go to, and you've got those spots. So just 2 poles that you have to put up, and you're good to go. And that is if you're going to keep the rain fly on. There's actually a little tie down for the rain fly in the corners. I'll clip to there, but this is you know, basically what you're going to be opening yourself up to. This floor right here I love because you have to, you know, it's expandable. That's what gives you all the room. And with that mattress over there, what's really nice is if we're out at the beach, or let's say you're just like setting up the camp and you need to just put some stuff here out of the way in your tent and you don't want it on the mattress, you know, initially, this spot is really nice for that. We're always getting sand in here. When we go to the beach, we set down towels and stuff so the kids can climb up here and play around. And then we don't have to worry about them constantly getting in and out and getting this mattress messed up. Now, speaking of the mattress, this is a 2.5 inch thick, and they call it, I think, like a 9-zone mattress or whatever. It's just foam. It's kind of like the old egg crate style foam, and it's got a bit of insulation on the bottom of it. What I will tell you is, compared to what we had in the past with our ARB, this is super comfortable. The kids don't complain about it being too stiff. It does not bother me. It sets down really nice. The material is pretty soft. It feels kind of like sleeping bag material. It's probably hard to tell on the camera, but there's still sand all over it from us going to the beach all the time. It cleans up pretty well. It's been, in my experience, fairly durable. So I'm very happy with that, you know, sort of configuration overall. In terms of storage, I do want to mention that you can keep 2 full-size like adult sleeping bags at the back there and 2 camping pillows and close it. Now that's really nice for us because it gives us a little bit more room in the Gladiator for hauling things. So the way the shell is sort of notched up, they sort of anticipated people keeping some bedding in here. Now this is a 4-person tent. It would be nice if you could keep all 4 sleeping bags and pillows in here, but we found that it's too tight to try to go down. So we'll hop in. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the features and stuff I really like about it. So let's talk about interior features because there's a lot to unpack here. Number one, let's talk about room. Now you've got 45 inches from the highest peak to the floor to sit up, get changed, and all that good stuff. And I don't find it to feel like too cramped or anything like that. You can store a few things in this tent. It does have these little built-in bags on either window, so that's kind of nice. And with the front portion of this tent, or at least that side being next to the roof of the Gladiator, I can unzip the window completely. And we've got these waterproof gear bags that I can just set on the roof. So for anything extra like dirty clothes and stuff, we can just set right out there. The windows are definitely worth talking about. They're pretty neat. So obviously you got your regular canvas here. When you want to actually see, you know, a little bit of the sights or get a cross breeze, you've got this screen here. Now, obviously you're like, well, you can't see anything. You've got this rain fly in the way. Well, you got 2 options. You can either use the poles, which are provided to set up for this, or you can do what I do and use these handy drawstrings. I love this feature. This is like, yeah, every tent should have had this for a long time. So now it takes 2 seconds. You don't have to set up poles or have one more thing to set up, and you got plenty of cross breeze. You can see outside. You can still unzip the screen if you want to, and this is just like probably my favorite feature of this tent. Yes, you can have this skylight too. This skylight unzips and then you roll it up, and so you've got really cool night light. Or if the kids are out here, you know, during the day and they can crawl around, they got plenty of lighting. Now, speaking of lighting, that's one thing that I do wish this tent setup had, is some sort of built-in overhead light. There's no electricity in this tent whatsoever. It does have these little grommet holes that you can route electricity into. For the most part, we just need lighting, so it's really not that big of a deal. My kids, when we camp, they all have headlights, so they're always set for that. And we have these little hanging lights in here that really make up for, you know, any missing light that we need. But I do wish there was some sort of like rechargeable, or even if it just had batteries, light that was kind of a permanent fixture. If you're someone that gets really cold at night, like my wife and my daughter, and you want to have your diesel heater piped into your tent, you can. We kind of have to shove the hose through this little opening right here. I do wish it had a dedicated like pocket or hole for like a heater hose. That would be really sweet. But we make it work. It's really not that big of a deal. overall, it's really nice. It's the canvas material itself. I have found that it stays fairly dry for camping. It gets a little dewy depending on where we're camping at, and the walls do a pretty good job of like not making you dewy. This thing is great, very well insulated, so you don't ever wake up with like your head feeling like, oh man, it's like wet against something. A few things worth mentioning on the outside of the tent. So this is how your rain fly attaches right here. Really not that complicated. Again, you can undo that, roll it back up out of the way. So if you're summer camping and you want a little bit more breathability, you can. Typically we leave it on. It's really not that big of a deal. These hooks right here are fantastic. This is what we use to hang like our shoe bag and things like that. It's a little hard because they're back here and you want to sort of like not have to like reach way out. So what we do is I've got a bag that I hook here and then I'll attach it to the ladder, and you can just drop the shoes in there. We can zip it up, and that's super easy. So that's kind of how we do that. You've got 3 of these on each side. They're movable. They work out really nicely. In terms of some of the sealing I was talking about, like any tent that hinges, you're going to have this like little bit of opening there, so you've got to be really smart with your material to make sure that that gap isn't big. We haven't really had an issue with it. Again, this is the side that we run that heater hose into, so that's not that huge of a deal. But I do want to show you how this thing mounts, because I do think they did a good job with the mounts. So a couple quick notes about these universal clamps. They work fantastic. I've had them obviously on this iKamper contour canopy, and I've had it on an AA Products bed rack, and I've never had an issue with these things coming loose or shifting or anything weird. They send you a really long Allen keyed bar to be able to put this on and off. You do have to get the crossbar set up off your roof enough because these things are kind of thick. That's the only thing I guess you kind of need to be aware of, is you can't really have it super streamlined and low. There may be some aftermarket ones that allow you to do it, like maybe side mount or something like that. It doesn't really whistle. I haven't had an issue. I mean, you're talking a pretty minimum amount of what's required for these things to be mounted, but just something to keep in mind. You know, it's basically a universal mount, and in my experience, it works perfectly fine. In terms of closing the tent, it's essentially the reverse procedure from opening it, with 2 small exceptions. First is that you want to make sure to clean the feet of the ladder well. iKamper provides a bag for the base of the ladder so it doesn't scratch the skylight material while it's in transit. I'll be the first to tell you that I sometimes misplace the ladder bag and have to go back and install it later. Once you do get the ladder collapsed, you're ready to close the tent. And to do that, you'll pull on 3 straps fairly evenly. The main strap is what you're going to pull down with, and the 2 side straps actually just keep the material pulled in. Once the shell is completely down, just tuck the straps back inside and re-lock the latches. So a few more quick notes. You can get this in 2 different finishes. So you can get it with the gloss like I did, or for a little bit more money, you can get it with basically looks like a hammer tone finish, or this rocky sort of textured finish. I ordered it before I ever knew that I was going to go with this AluCap, so I went with gloss. I feel like the gloss has been holding up very well for me in the woods. I was a little worried about going with the textured finish for mud. We get a lot of that red clay here in the southeast, and I was worried it was just going to get in a spot that I couldn't see. This thing's very difficult to wash, as you can imagine, so I was a little concerned about that. But the gloss has been fine, but if you do want to go with a different textured finish, it is available. In terms of how this thing actually makes the vehicle drive, if you're curious about that, for my Gladiator, it doesn't make a huge difference. And I've got these Fox 3.0 remote reservoir shocks, and they have compression adjusters on it. So when I put this thing up there, I crank up the low speed compression all the way to max. And what low speed compression is controlling is the sway of the vehicle. So when you have more weight up top, you get a little bit more sway. Tightening up that compression, bringing up those levels, absolutely makes a huge difference. I don't even have a rear sway bar on this. I broke it on the Rubicon trail years ago, and I should upgrade to an anti-rock. I think that would really help, and it'd give the Jeep the clearance it needs with the rear sway bar. But honestly, it drives so well without it, I haven't been that motivated to even worry about putting one on. So that might be something that I end up doing eventually, because I will say, whenever I have this thing loaded up with all of our camping gear and everything that we take with us, it does bring the springs down, and you do get a little bit of extra weight in the back. But it's a hard balance, you know, with this being so tall with 4.5-inch springs, like I'm not just going to put like airbags in the back to, you know, help that, but it's always a bit of a trade-off. It's always been like that with a rooftop tent. You know, 165 pounds isn't that bad. 2 people can pick that up. It's just really tall, so the logistics of getting it on and off is very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. And you know, I've got an enclosed trailer that has a little rack on it that I can actually slide this thing off and set it there, and I also have friends with forklifts, which are always really nice to have, that I can pop this thing off. But if you're trying to like take this thing off and on and off all the time by yourself, it's hard, especially something that is this tall. If you've got a lower vehicle, probably won't be so bad. You might be able to get a couple, you know, 2 people on each side and carry it off. But that's probably my only big negative, and that's the kind of the common negative in your rooftop tent, is you end up driving around with this thing on there all the time. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you want to see some stuff I'm working on behind the scenes, you can always check me out at all social media at Ollie Mansour Editor. Our goal with all of these videos is to educate, entertain, and inform on basically all things automotive. So if you did like this video, please consider actually liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It absolutely helps. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope to see you on the trail. Take care.